Welcome back to the Green Line Gazette, episode 7. This is a big one. I'm excited. You're excited. I got my best buddy here, Jonah Renz, just the perfect guy to talk about the Renaissance. BC Hoops. It's a new era. We're turning it around. Remember, we're live on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Substack. Follow us on Instagram. Um, Absolute banger. Today, we're talking transfer portal and next steps for BC basketball as we enter the post Earl Grant era. I'm joined again by Jonah. Jonah, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me. This
Of
is really
course. You want
exciting. Yeah, go ahead.
you want to tell the people a little bit about, your background. I feel like I don't think there's any guy on campus that loves BC basketball or cares for it more than you. So if you want to give the people a little background on where you're coming from, I'm sure they appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd absolutely love to. My name is Jonah. I'm originally from Milton, Massachusetts. I played basketball in high school at Milton Academy along with Nick Petronio, who's one of the current players at BC this year. That's sort of how I started getting involved with the team. I was a manager for the past 2 seasons for the men's basketball team, and I also am club president of the Sports Analytics Club. So I've done quite a few analytics projects for the team. Most recently, I was accepted into the MIT Sloan mentorship program for the Sports Analytics Conference. Part of that was due to my work with the basketball team and analytics. So I have a bit of a background there as well.
So if that doesn't tell you, I brought the right guy on. I mean, I think you might be in the wrong place. Is it people are saying you took down AJ DeBansa? NEPSAC championship.
This is true.
This
Although
is true. This is true.
I was sitting on the bench during that game, but AJ DeBansta during his freshman year of high school played at a school called St. Sebastian's in Massachusetts. My team was the only team to beat him. We beat him twice, first on their home court, and then again in the Class A prep school championship game. We won by 1 point off like a steal and a layup and an and one off Austin Hunt, who currently is at Harvard. So some very fond memories of mine back in the day.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna jump right into it here. We're gonna go departures first. Here's a little graph I brought up. I mean, it's no secret, Jonah. I think we all knew Murray was gonna clean house, right? That's what you have to, right? That's what you expect, right? New head coach. It's kind of the standard, if you will, if you agree on that.
Yeah, it's a good point. You froze for a little bit there on my end, but what I would say is my interpretation of this, it truly is a cleaning of house. Um, the weird thing with the transfer portal now, and I mentioned this before in some of our previous conversations, but with how it works when the transfer portal is, it's a situation where the player chooses the coach and the coach chooses the player. Both of these things are sort of happening at the same time. In the past, I feel it was more of like a coach choose player situation where if a new coach comes in, there was just less leeway for players to switch situations. Maybe you'd see that more in a situation where you had a high school recruit coming in and there's a new coach and maybe they reopen their commitment, but certainly nothing like the extent that we're seeing now. And so what I would imagine is that Coach Murray is having conversations with a lot of the players, and it seems like there's just maybe it's a decision on their end that they feel like they're a better fit somewhere else. Maybe it's Coach Luke Murray thinking that there's other guys that might be a better fit, but regardless, there definitely is a mass exodus of sorts going on. That is for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you notice here, anybody watching on YouTube with access to the video portion of this episode, all 10 of these players were all, or most of them were all scholarship players. Every player that or saw meaningful court time, basically touched the court at all this past season, is gone. So this is like a true.
Oh yeah, the entire team.
This is
Yeah.
this is the entire team. Like
Yep.
the BC basketball we will see come fall winter 2026 will be unrecognizable. How and what way will it be unrecognizable? Excuse me, we don't know that yet. Obviously, we don't even have any portal commitments as it's still early in the portal, but it will certainly be different, right? Losing all these
Yeah.
players, and I think you can attest to this, but I want to preface this discussion, and when we talk about Grant later, that despite these guys all leaving and the rough season it was, and maybe the product on the court wasn't the greatest. I think it's still important to note that a lot of these guys were like BC through and through. Like,
Big time.
exemplary young men like on campus who were present in the community, engaged with the community, were great guys. I had the chance to interact with a lot of them in post game pressers. I know Jonah, you saw him every day.
Yep.
So they are leaving, right? It was a rough season, but we do wish them all the best. Jonah, I know you can speak to that a little more than me, but we'll definitely miss them. But it is a new era. So
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts on a few of those different things. First, I think I owe the guys a shout out. There are just some awesome people. Truly, my favorite part of managing these past 2 years was the other managers and also the players, just all stand-up human beings. Truthfully, like people I very much consider friends. To give a quick story for the people on the podcast, a passion project of mine that I always like to take on at BC is I like to run a sort of basketball charity event at least once a year. It started for me my sophomore year for an organization called A Shop for Life, which raises money for brain cancer. And then this past year, I did it for Charity Water, which helps raise money for clean water in Africa. And I bring that up because I partner with the men's basketball team. All 15 of the guys came this year, and actually it was 16. All 16 of the guys on the roster came to that event, showed up. They were referees for the game, for the event, like they were reffing a 3v3 tournament. They didn't have to do that. They went out of their way on a Friday to come support me because they knew that this is something that I cared very deeply about. And so I think that that story does a little bit of justice in saying these are great human beings. Obviously, like BC basketball is undergoing a transition, but I truly think of them very highly as people, very highly as players, and I'm very grateful for my relationship with all of them.
oh, absolutely. And let it be known, Luke Ballard, Hunter Gooding, and Nicole Ramesh would have won the 3-on-3 tournament if certain things went other ways. We won't speak on it. We'll be back
Right, right,
I'm
right.
sure Charity Water will be back senior year 2026.
There are plans to continue that.
But yeah, I mean, it was great, man. I remember that. I remember awesome Asamoah ref my game, or all of them, and they were all into it, having fun. So again,
Mhm.
great guys. Sad to see them go, but definitely necessary, and it's definitely just the way college athletics work now, especially
With you
with a
on both
high
fronts.
profile coach. Yeah, with a guy like Murray, like he has his guys. He has the pull to get these guys. So you got to expect it, and then obviously guys like Forte graduating, won't be
Yep.
coming back
Same
for,
with Aiden Shaw too. Yep.
yeah, like eligibility reasons. It is what it is. But
Mhm.
sad to see him go, but thankful they were here. Great guys. You got anything else you wanna say before we kind of dive into what's next, or what we want to be to next?
Well, we can go a lot of different ways about this. We could start with maybe BC as a team this year. I can maybe do a little bit of analysis on that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get that.
Cool. I think to start this conversation, one exciting thing that sources are really talking about with Luke Murray is his prowess as an offensive-minded head coach. He's really been the one that's been the engine behind UConn's successful offense over these past year. I want to, if you could maybe share the screen here, show a quick report for the people at home here. This was the report that I actually sent in on behalf for the MIT conference that I mentioned before. I took a look at the best offenses in college basketball, the NBA, and the different international leagues, including Spain's league. And I looked at a bunch of different advanced metrics and tried to break down what makes a good offense, the things that, like, what separates the good offenses from the bad offense. And I want to go back to the top here in this sort of abstract area. What's important to mention is I took the top 10 teams from college basketball during their statistics, and UConn's offense by points per possession was in the top 10 in terms of
Is this
actual.
2025? Is this like
This
this
was for
current
the
season, or this 2 years ago? 24.
24-25 season.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
So not this past year, but the year before. And let me pull up. Let's see if I have it here. The right tab. Can you see my current tab?
I can only see
Let me do
the
this.
report.
Can you see
Oh,
this?
there we go. Yeah, yeah, I got you. There it
Okay,
is. The
cool.
Connecticut Huskies. Yep.
Yes. So this is some of their statistics from this past year. I really want to highlight this one. It's a very simple one. Points per possession, 1.165. This is elite. It's currently ranked in the top. It's top 67. The benchmark that I've always used for my reports in the past is that elite offenses you want to target definitely over 1 point per possession. But the more you're getting to that 1.1 threshold, that's where you're really seeing the elite offenses pull away. And to that same point, you're seeing their defense, it's top 25 with it's below that 1 point per possession threshold. Clearly, that's the difference between winning and losing games by a per possession basis. That's just efficient basketball. That's really what you want to get from your coach, from your players. You want to be producing things efficiently, whether that's through shot selection, whether that's through play design. The end result of all of that effort and hard work, and even building a team, is the numbers that you're seeing right here. It's efficient offense, and it's holding your opponents to be shooting bad shots, playing at your own pace in a way that's effective. So I'm gonna stop
Yeah.
sharing this
And
for now.
do you remember BC's points per possession this year? Because it was below 1, wasn't it? At least at some
So
point in the season.
it's a good question. Currently, I have it pulled up. Their points per possession was just over 1. It was 1.003, but their opponent's point per possession was 1.046. And so naturally, like that's a losing margin. The opponent is outscoring BC, and
Ri riveting
riveting
relations
news
taking
there,
place
right?
here.
But I think the elite offenses are around that 1.1 range, which is about 110 points every 100 possessions. And so the area you're like, okay, so the question that analytically minded coaches should be thinking about is if we're scoring 100 points every 100 possessions, how can we get those extra 2 to 3 points here? How can we get those extra 2 to 3 points there? And part of that is in how you design your roster, getting guys that play cohesively with one another. I mentioned before that I've done some analytics reports. One that I specifically did for BC was comparing their offense when they had 4 design shooters on the court versus 3 design shooters. And I specifically used the Quentin Post year when they substituted in Mason Madsen for Prince of League Bay. Their offense took a huge jump in efficiency, which is truly no surprise to maybe the fan that's watching when you have that fourth guy on the court that can space it out. It
I
makes
was
such a
hoping you would
difference.
mention this. I was hoping you'd
Yep.
I remember
So
talking about
to,
this.
to bring up a little bit more specifically, I want to say the starting 5 was Jaden Zachary, Claudio Harris, Mason Madsen subbed in, Devin McLaughlin, and Quentin Post. And I think part of the conversation that we're going to have here is like, okay, how do you design your roster given the constraints of maybe some NIL? Like, what's the prototype? What's the archetype of certain players? And I think that lineup gives an idea of what could potentially work under the right circumstances. The reason I mention that is you had Jaden Zachary, who is a capable 3-and-D player. Claudio Harris, maybe not as good defensively, but had his streaks. He was a pretty streaky guy for BC that year, but he definitely was a high scoring threat for some games. Quentin Post was BC's top guy, obviously, that year. But he really shined because he was able to stretch the floor. Devin McLaughlin was your total, like, traditional 4-man, 10-and-10 type of guy, maybe 12-and-8. He was there to get offensive rebounds. He wasn't really a huge shooting threat. And so when they subbed in Mason Madsen for Prince of League Bay, their offense really shot up because before you had Prince and Devin out there who weren't crazy shooting threats, both of them. And so defenses could just pay a little bit more attention to the other 3 guys in the perimeter. And maybe that's only causing a slight drop in percentage, but over the course of the season, if you have a 2 to 3% drop in 3-point percentage, that's going to decrease your points per possession by quite a bit over the course of the season. So that's something that I think all of the teams should be thinking about is putting 4-shooter rosters or 5-shooter rosters. This isn't anything analytically that is crazy or nuanced or any of that, but truly being able to space the floor, it's incredibly important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is Zachary's stats from
Yep.
that year. And having a guy that can shoot 40% from three, like
Right.
that fourth man shooters, game changing. I mean, and you alluded to it. We've talked about it, of course, a bunch of times, but this year BC they tried that, right? They just didn't have they didn't have the right people to execute that. And then to go back to what we were talking about, the points per possession thing, obviously
Mhm.
getting outscored. You said, was it 1.46 to like 1.01 or something?
It was one. BC was 1.003 to 1.046.
Okay. Yeah. And we've talked about this, but it under Grant, it didn't help with his very slow style of play, which is not always a bad thing. It's by all means, it's great to slow the game down, but if you're going to slow the game down, you need to be able to you need to be able to execute when you slow
Sure.
the game down, or you're going to end up like BC did this year, where you play the game so slow and you miss every shot that, I mean, every game is close, but you're never going to win. So
So that's a great point. I definitely agree with you there. BC was able to, for lack of a better word, stay in some of the games where they might have been a little bit more outmatched on paper because of their slower style. The tricky part is just because you play slower doesn't necessarily mean that you're not necessarily able to push to that next level. What I mean by that is I think BC had this pattern of maybe hanging around a little bit, but when the game got close, they just didn't know how to design enough plays to get them those three consecutive possessions where they're scoring, those 7-0 runs. I think a lot of times they're actually on the opposite end of that, where the opponents, when they would be up if BC would be up sometimes at half by 8 or 10 points, the opponent would string together a couple of great quick hitters or just a run here and there, and the momentum never really swung back BC's way. And I think part of that was, you're right, like system design, like how play calls are being made.
yeah, I mean, and if you need some visualization there for the listeners, what he just explained, like think of the Cal game this year, the Virginia game, the Miami
Yep.
game, that first Notre Dame game they lost, especially that Virginia game at home. That was, I mean, the stands were full until about a minute left,
Okay.
until free throws started to happen and whatnot. But I mean, that's exactly what you're talking about. The style they play allows them to keep it close, but when teams get these explosive runs, it was hard for this year's BC squad to respond. I think you're absolutely correct about that. It
Can I
seems
can I
the
share another thought here as
Yeah,
well?
absolutely, absolutely.
So I did this report last year, and I think, let me see if you can see it here.
If you want to add it to the doc, I should be able to throw it up on
Let's try
screen again.
this. Is
Yep,
that
here we
showing out
go.
okay?
There you go. Yeah, all
Okay,
the
cool.
graphs.
So I
Yep,
made a bunch of these
gotcha.
different visualizations here, and it compared BC's offense to uh, what were the top five offenses in the ACC by points per possession last year. And so I think this is helpful to maybe give you an idea of like, what are the trends of successful offenses doing, and how could BC be thinking about this in the future? The first chart here in the top left is talking about how many total three pointers, and the second one on the right in the top right there is what is their effective field goal percentage across the team's three best shooters. So for BC that year is Donald Hand, Fred Payne, and Dion Brown. And though these graphs, they're a little bit small on screen, the trend is pretty simple. BC's best shooters were taking less shots and making less shots, and they were doing at a slightly less efficient but comparable effective field goal percentage. So the natural suggestion there is your top shooters need to be in positions where they're shooting more shots at a higher clip. Again, this is not revolutionary, but the idea is, I think that the struggle with that year was the number of attempts. We had guys that are comparable in terms of percentage, but by virtue of the low attempts, BC was making less as a team. And your point about the style of slow offense is totally true. And I think that this chart here tells that story a little bit. This is just the chart of total offensive points per game. And again, this is from the 24 to 25 season. This trend was very much similar this year as well. BC was a little bit lower on that end, and part of that was due to the fact that they didn't push the pace as much. And to go back to my earlier report on what were the top offenses in college basketball doing, I'm going to try to explain a little bit about what it means when I say transition percentage. Transition percentage is the percent of offensive possessions that are in transition versus half court. The top offenses in college basketball have a much higher percent of possessions that end in a transition basket, because transition offense by points per possession is always a little bit higher than half court offense. Part of that is due to maybe the easier dunks and fast break threes that when the defense isn't fully set. So you need to be able to get in transition. And maybe that's just the style of it being a little bit slower and being more intentional and staying close in the games. But the truth is, offensive efficiency goes up in possessions that are in transition. And so the slowing the down aspect, it might have been the philosophy, but it might not have been as efficient as other styles. One other thing I'd like to highlight here is, at least with playmakers, I specifically looked at assists and assist to turnover ratio with BC compared with other ACC schools. And I think one thing that BC really struggled in the 24 to 25 season was having that really key playmaker who could have a consistent 5-6 assists and 1 to 2 turnovers. This wasn't really the case that year. They had guys who would mix in at the point guard position, but didn't have the best like assist to turnover ratio, and that lack of a true playmaker, I think, hurt them. And part of having a successful offense is having those key playmakers. You'll see here among the top 5 offenses compared with total number of assists, BC was much lower, and I don't see that as any kind of surprise. So those are some highlights from my end on that analysis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's in practice, it's a simple concept, right? Across all, lacrosse, hockey, basketball, whatever, transition wins you games. You have to be strong in the transition. What Murray brings to BC from UConn, he has a very strong transition, but he prefers those half court sets, the structured offense. But when there's a transition opportunity, they are taking it. They're not slowing down, and his offense has performed really, really well. I have a couple Ken Palm stats here. So Luke Murray, obviously at UConn from 2021 to 2026 this year. Their offensive rating, so points per 100 possessions by year, it goes 116.5, 118.8, 123.4, 126.8, 113.6 last year in that off year for UConn, and then this year their natty run 119.8. And Ken Palm rates those offense, so anything below 110 is subpar, 115 tournament team, 120 elite, 125 is historic. Murray in 23 and 24 had basically 2 historic seasons, and then every other year besides that 2025 year has been elite. Like this guy knows
Great
what he's doing.
Be.
Exactly. This rating, if you watch, I urge you guys to go watch like some UConn offensive set film. You will see how methodical and how planned out Luke Murray's offenses are. And don't take it from me. Go listen to what Dan Hurley has to say about Luke Murray.
He knows better than anybody else, right?
Exactly. He holds him in like the highest regard. And the Ken Palm, it backs it up. So 4th in the country, 6th in the country, and then that natty year, they were number 1 in the country in offensive efficiency. This coming to BC, you won't even recognize what's going to be on the court. Very excited about that. His offense, it's just like I said, just perfect mix of being able to slow the game down, which we already said is a good thing. You need to let the game breathe, but he his guys, and he knows how to pick it up when you need to. If there's those fast breaks, or if the team's out there gassed or the opposing team is gassed, and you want to make them burn a timeout or whatever, they can start pushing it. So expect to see a lot of that come this fall. And then one last thing, if you guys are listening right now, I urge you to tune into like the video broadcast, Jonah's graphics they will help you understand a lot of what we were talking about if you don't understand. And even
Some
if you do,
basic
they're
Google
great.
Sheets from my freshman, sophomore year self right
But
there.
they're great to help us
You gotta do what you gotta do.
understand what we're talking about, and very accurate. We're gonna move on now to who's next. So obviously we don't know. Nobody has committed to BC. The portal's just open. We can kind of talk about who we need. So I got 5 guys I'm gonna bring up that I would like to see Murray take a stab at, and then I'll let you just talk if you want to talk like general or what kind of player archetype, because you've been around the college basketball level for quite some time. So first guy, Colby Duggan, College of Charleston, Munson, MA native. You're going to notice a theme here where all these guys are from. Wilbraham Munson, graduate. Great big man this year. Really turned up for Charleston. 9.3 points a game, 2.4 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and he shoots 40% from the field. Very excited if we can pounce on this. I think we should. Oh, sorry, just spoiled that.
That's okay.
I think we should be able to get a really good stab at Duggan. Again, being in Massachusetts, that should help us.
That's where we got to start.
Yeah, I mean, right, coming from Charleston mid-major, he's probably, I mean, if you're getting in the portal, it means you're looking for high major basketball. You probably don't want to make that lateral move. You're not going to get like a Michigan or a UConn or a Duke. So, a school like Boston College where you can be a centerpiece of that rebuild. And I think, I want to hear what you have to say about this, but I think because we've cleaned house and because this is the renaissance of BC basketball, it's very attractive to portal players because they are basically being told, like, this is your team. Like, you have a important role.
I'd imagine that's how they're framing it to recruits.
Right. I feel like that makes sense, right? Like,
yeah,
you're saying like, hey, like I'm making my own team from scratch. I am deliberately picking you. That means something. That means I trust you. That means I see an important role for you on this team. All right, moving on. Jordan Clayton. Stats not as great, obviously, as you can see, but I watched a little bit of his film that was chopped up from Northwestern. I really like his style of play. He's very similar to like the Caleb Steger situation where he wasn't really used. Yeah, like he's a 3 type of player, but he wasn't used properly by Northwestern. Like, hence why the stats may be a little lower. That's the transfer I'm most upset about leaving is Steger. Like, the potential, you let me know, but I thought the potential.
I think Caleb's got a lot of potential. I think he's gonna be a great player. He's obviously young. He's a great shooter. I think he's excellent. It's tough because he doesn't have a whole lot of film right now, but in terms of what I've seen in practice, he's awesome. Like, he really can, when he has those practices where he's hitting a couple of shots in a row, you're like, wow, okay, like he can really catch on fire.
I wish he got more court time this year. I had said it all year. You can go read any of the articles I wrote. Every time Steger got in the game, it was a guaranteed 1 or 2 threes, and then he would just come out and he wouldn't get back in. I'm like, guys, what are we doing? Like, give the kid some playing time. Like, he obviously can operate well on a college basketball floor, so why not give him the chance? Anyway, Jordan Clayton, Medford MA native. Again, we got to get these it starts here. You said it best. You got to keep the local guys local. And that goes for New England too. Obviously, you're not the premier basketball team in New England. You're competing with.
They should be.
They should be, right?
Maybe obviously you got UConn, but like BC should target that.
Yeah, it's a realistic goal. You are a Power 4, I guess Power 5 in college basketball with the Big East. You're a Power 5 ACC school. That's a great academic institution. There's no reason you should not be trying to make yourself a hegemon, in the New England region. Also, Clayton, Northwestern guy, he can handle the high academics, right? It'll be a smooth situation. I have heard from some other reporters inside the building that in the past, at least, some deterrent from BC has been the academics.
It's an interesting one, right?
Yeah. It's like you don't think about it. You're like, you could go to well, I don't want to offend anybody here. I'm trying to think. I don't know.
We
You can
take
go to like a UMass and not go to class every day and get to play basketball
you
24/7, or
went
you go to
local.
BC. Yeah. It's I had to poke fun at the minimum there. Or you
Of
could go to BC
course.
where you got to go to class and
Yeah.
you have responsibilities outside of the basketball court. So again,
No,
that can be a
I'll go
deterrent.
both ways with that on you for that one. Like, yeah,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
could see it being a deterrent for some recruits, but I could also totally see it as something that brings people in. Some people
Yeah.
very much care about their degree and the life after college. And what's tough is now when you have so much money being thrown around, the whole aspect of career and job gets skewed a little bit because you can say, okay, well, maybe I don't care as much about my academics, but I'm getting paid $500,000 more. And from an athlete perspective, I hear you on that one. Like that's totally fair. But the degree still matters. The degree and the life after college, that's I think a big draw of BC in comparison to a lot of other schools. So at least for Jordan Clayton's sake, like I think the Northwestern background, like it's probably pretty similar in that regard.
Absolutely. Medford MA native. All right. This actually is rendered moot now because I made this during class.
You got ambitious with this one.
I know. So I did this during class around 11:30, and then I had class all day. Just finished a night class. I really haven't been on my phone all day. I opened my phone, JP Estrella to Michigan. There's only
I played
21
against him in high
players.
school.
Wait, he was a Brewster guy,
He was
right?
a
Right?
Brewster
Yeah,
Academy.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
They
some of my
produced
teammates
a lot
played
of
with him
studs.
from Middlesex Magic. Yeah. Shout out
There you go.
JP. Good for him. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Michigan.
So
Yeah, that's incredible.
uh right, ambitious. But when I was making this at noon before he committed, I was like, New England guy, prep school quite close to BC. We're building something big here. He's obviously looking for a main role. Tennessee wasn't doing it for him. Definitely a shot in the dark. But I opened my phone after my Origins of the Cold War class about 8:30, and it says JP Estrella to Michigan. I'm like, oh my god.
I think that's
So
a great spot for him. He's gonna
yeah, hey,
excel there. Good
the
for
the
him.
seven the 7-foot surfer, man. It's scary though. If you're in the Big Ten, Michigan football just won a natty 2 years ago. They have money
Yep.
from that. They
Mhm.
obviously just won the national championship in basketball. I guess a little less important, their hockey team could very well win the national championship. Their donors are among the wealthiest people in the world.
It's a great business school too. They got some wealthy people over
It's a
there.
great academic school.
Yeah.
Great. It's a blue blood school in general. Reputation. I don't know. Is Michigan going to run college sports? I don't know how you compete with this. I
I
don't even
mean,
want to.
hey,
I don't even
they
want to
kind of
know how
are right
much.
now.
Yeah, I don't want to know how much Estrella got in NIL money because I know it's an unfathomable
An
amount.
amount
And
that is
you already know their budget went up too. They just won the Natty. Dusty Mays, he gets whatever he wants, and rightfully so. He showed him he can do it. So little premature there on the Estrella shout. We wish him all the best at Michigan, but again, got to start somewhere. Get those New England guys. Next up, we got Tyler Betsy, another New England guy, Windsor. Right now,
interesting. Okay.
Syracuse. I put him on this list because I really liked what I saw from him at the Syracuse BC game this year.
Okay. Okay.
So I got the in-person Betsy experience. I thought he played really well. I really like his style of play. He's a great ball handler and he has great on-court awareness, which I think a lot of our guys lack this year.
40% from 3 too.
Yeah, super underrated aspect is being able to move without the ball, which he does extremely well. You can't just stand there and wait for the ball to come to you and then try and run the offense. It's all good offenses, like every offense Luke Murray has ever been a part of, have excellent off-ball movement, and I think he would fit in quite nicely with the scheme Luke Murray runs. And obviously rough times at Syracuse too. So easy to see why he would leave and maybe, come be that centerpiece for Luke Murray. Come be his guy. So we'll see if the Windsor CT native makes any moves or any visits to BC, but he's definitely on my radar. And then here's the most important one. Mattapan MA, Alex Wilkins. I don't know if you know him at all or if
He
you played
played with my
against
brother
him.
growing up.
Okay, there you go. Because I was
Yep.
gonna say
I
Mattapan's
know
right
him
next
very
to
well.
Milton.
Yep.
Um,
So I do.
go ahead.
That'd be an interesting one. Alex is from Milton originally. Played with my younger brother. He went to Brooks, which is a private school that I played against, so I actually got to play against him. I think he was a Middlesex Magic guy as well. There's definitely a lot of ties between BC and the Middlesex crew. What an unbelievable year for Alex. I could see him getting a lot of attention in the portal. Furman, March Madness, I want to say he had 21 points himself in that March Madness game. Good for him, 18 points as a true freshman. That is, or maybe
you don't
I
see
think
that.
you don't see
I
that a
think
lot.
I think he is a true freshman.
I think he is a
Someone
true
might have to
freshman. I
double
think Brooks was his
check
prep
us on
school
that.
year. That's why I bring that up, because I know my brother's a sophomore. So that's
Mhm.
why I hesitated. I think he's a true freshman in college, though.
Yeah. But obviously, you already said it. People are gonna be going for him. This is a high-profile target, but hey, Mattapan Milton is 15 minutes from BC. If you're Luke Murray, you got to be on this, and I'm sure he is. Right? I'm sure he is. He's obviously Wilkins is going to be asking for money, and rightly so. Supposedly, we have that increase in rev share and NIL budget for BC basketball, although Blake James still refuses to comment on that, which is a little sketchy, as I've mentioned in the past. I don't like that. But again, rumors in the building were saying Murray wasn't going to sign at BC if he didn't get that promised $8 million NIL and the increased rev share funds. So, assuming that's the case, I think you throw a hefty sum at Wilkins. I really think I think this is going to be your guy. This is going to be your floor general. And I think you got to get on him early. Everyone's going to be on him, but you want to, get that strong impression and secure him all you can before Michigan wanders in with $6 million, plops it on the desk, because nobody's turning that down for obvious reasons. So, I mean, if we can get this guy, Jonah, I'm going to be like ecstatic. It'll be awesome.
Yeah. Alex is a stud.
Mass native, man.
We will have to see. I hope so too. I think he's a great player. I do think he'll get a lot of offers thrown his way, but he's incredible. Again, 18 points is a true 5 assists. This goes to the archetypes conversation, but he's got the pro game. I think he could be a pro for sure. 6'5" point guard. Just plays the game very confidently in his own way. Doesn't force things too much. And obviously this is just as a freshman. Like, yes, he had high turnovers. But that's just a byproduct of maybe being in Furman's system, where like he has to kind of be more of the guy, make plays with what he has. I think in a situation where Luke Murray is the coach and can scheme up some plays for him, the potential there is so high.
Yeah, I mean, type of guy you hand the keys to and really let him run it out there. But yeah, let's get into what you think. I mean, we talked about, obviously, I would assume you prefer the 4-1 program, the 4 shooters on the court model.
Yeah, more generally.
I would say, are you going to kind of lean towards you need the guys who can kind of do it all type of thing?
Good question. I think, and every coach has a system that they think will work better, but there's certain archetypes that you're definitely seeing more and more in college basketball. You look at Caravan as an example of like a stretch 4 who can kind of do a little bit of everything for UConn. That type of player is really key in just about every team. One more traditional player that you're still seeing a lot of is the traditional 5, the roll man, the guy that's just there to set screens, get dunks, block shots. And I think Jaden Hastings is a great example of that. Out of all the guys in the portal, I know you mentioned Caleb Steger. There's a lot of guys I have no favorites, but I think in terms of like the type of player that would do very well at BC still, I think Jaden would definitely be one of them. I think his game is translatable to just about any program. You're seeing that typical 5-man still have definitely a place in college basketball. Obviously, you have some guys that are more 3 and D by nature, and I think a lot of times you see them at the 2 and the 3. Um, I mentioned some of my high school teammates, but CJ Cox is a teammate of mine. He plays at Purdue. He's been there now for a couple of years, and he's kind of the prototype that comes to mind for me, just in my biased experience of a guy who like is there to shoot threes, and he's there to play some defense. Um, the off-ball system of Luke Murray's style, I think, is very interesting. Obviously, you need guys that are there to run, catch, and shoot guys. Caleb, I think, would thrive in that type of system where he's sort of running around off screens, off the ball. So I totally see your point about why him leaving is a little frustrating. But you definitely need a point guard running the show. Like you need a guy who's comfortable, able to communicate. I think in the past, BC's had a lot of guys that are more defense heavy, and there's definitely still a place for that in college basketball. But I think offense is the harder thing to obtain, and defense is more of the focus of the coach, like to teach later on. So as you're thinking about a transfer portal, I think the thing that you should try to look for is guys that have that offensive skill set that maybe need a little bit more direction on defense if you do have to choose between one of the two, because picking a complete player at this point might be really expensive. And again, we're trying to figure out how much BC's NIL is and what it's being allocated towards and how much of it's changing. But I think you got to prioritize offense, especially considering Luke Murray's background as an offensive style head coach. You got to have guys that fit the system. I think what we are also seeing is the 3 and 4. Again, this goes back to the caravan discussion, but you need the 3 and the 4 as guys that can kind of do a little bit of everything. Maybe BC doesn't have that superstar type player that's scoring 25 points a night, but you're gonna need guys that are at least capable of like catching, making an open 3, guarding multiple positions, being versatile on defense, covering 1 to 5. Those type of guys you definitely need if you want to have any chance of being competitive. Those are some of my more baseline thoughts, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, and for that reason, for everything you said, is why I prefer the product that is college basketball over the NBA. I think there's almost some like I don't know how to
beauty
put
in
it
the imperfection.
Well, yeah, it's like it's almost like there's more skill involved on the coaching and logistics end to mesh together the lineup of guys. You got one guy that can really only do 1 or 2 things, and then you got your traditional 5, which is kind of going extinct in the NBA right now. Most 5s can really do it all. Obviously, that's what you need at the next level, but I prefer that traditional 5, like the Hastings and whatnot. I think there's just a little bit of beauty, like beauty to the imperfection.
Well, what I would add to that
together
too,
that lineup.
Having Luke Murray come in is even that much more important because of that, because of
absolutely
the lack of maybe full completeness on the players. You got to be able to work with the pieces. I think coaching is sort of a problem-solving activity of working with what you have, trying to maximize, and this is true now financially too, but in terms of coaching, when you're there, you have to figure out how to align the pieces, the skill sets onto a product onto the court that's going to be super effective. You also now have to think about that financially, like who's getting the money. It's truly like a business school problem. Like, how do we allocate this budget efficiently so that we're getting the players that are going to maximize output? So there almost needs to be alignment on multiple fronts there, which is really interesting to see that intersection between sports and business. And from a coaching perspective, you're absolutely right. I think you still have a lot more archetypes that can fit because every player is sort of themselves, and it's the coach's job to make do with what they have, right? Like I would say if you're talking NBA specifically, BC's top scorer this past year is Fred Payne. Fred Payne, awesome guy off the court, great performance on the court. He's a 6'1" guard. And I just think there's not a whole lot of 6'1" guards in the NBA that are the main primary scorer at this point in time. And what's beautiful about college basketball is you have Fred Payne, who through his own hard work and effort and through the system that was happening last year, he was able to produce, and he's going to get potentially some great offers thrown at him. So good for Fred. And that's what's different about college basketball is you can kind of see more people in their own individual like experience thrive. Like there isn't necessarily one prototype in the way that there's in the NBA, like the wing that's 6'8" and guards 4 positions and makes threes and sits in the corner. That's not so much the case in college basketball, just because there's just more of a disparity and there's a bigger range in skill sets, as you were talking about.
Yeah, and you stole the words out of my mouth there. I was going to talk about Fred Payne, that underside. It's
No, go ahead.
the Kemba Walker
Sure.
archetype of
Yeah.
the undersized, shifty guard that doesn't exist anymore in the NBA. That's why I love college basketball, because you
Right. I
have
think you're
guys
seeing
like
Darius
Fred
Garland do
Payne.
that, but
Yeah,
his
but I
defense
mean, that's
is
one.
right.
That's kind of like one guy. Like there
Yeah.
used to be,
Right.
go back in time 10, 15 years ago. There's a bunch of them, of those Kemba Walker type players running
Mm-hmm.
around the court, wreaking havoc. And it's now extinct. Now all your point guards are 6'5" and taller, it feels like, and it's just how the game is naturally evolving. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But a guy like Fred Payne, who I'm gonna miss dearly, right? I really wanted him to stay. It makes sense, though. He was, I don't know if you guys saw that tweet, but he basically said Earl Grant was kind of the only coach that really took a flyer, took a chance on him, and gave him
And
an
I think that's true
opportunity.
with a lot of the guys on this list
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Donald Hand came out and said a similar thing. Um, so right, it's sad to see him go. It makes sense, but yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
undersized guard role that Payne was doesn't really exist anymore, and it's for me, it makes for a more interesting, display of the game
Sure.
that I tend to
It shows
prefer.
that more people, like, there's more variety of what can be successful, right?
Yeah,
Like we can talk
exactly.
about particular archetypes that are possible in the pro scene, but I think you can look at Fred Payne's example as like there isn't necessarily one type of guy who's going to succeed. And even this past year as a manager, to see his jump from my sophomore year to this past year, where he was, I want to say, like maybe a 9 point per game score the year before. I'm not actually sure, but he was around 16, 15.8 this past year. To see that jump, it's awesome. Like it shows that you can find success at a variety of different archetypes. It truly just goes down to the system, though. We talked about the offensive efficiency as a whole of BC being a little bit down in some certain areas, and I think 3 point shooting was overall one area of that this past year. Um, you got to be able to design a system that effectively uses the pieces that you do have and making do with the archetypes that are and so that's recruiting comes in, and you got to be able to find guys that fit your system. That's the building the puzzle piece aspect of coaching, right? Like you got to be able to find the right puzzle pieces, then you got to make the puzzle pieces fit. So that it's a two-step process. This recruiting, this transfer portal process, all these different guys that you've named, you're like, okay, what are the puzzle pieces that are going to work for this particular system? That's the job that they're currently trying to figure out, is who are these different puzzle pieces. After that process ends in a couple of weeks when the portal closes, then it's about how you make the puzzles fit together and work together in a way that's going to be an effective way.
Yeah, and I'll say, to round out this part of the segment, it's great. It's always fun to watch the Wembanyamas, the Jokic's, the Jason
The
Tatums, who can
anomalies.
really, the anomalies, who can really just do it all, right? They can slash, they can shoot, they can rebound, they can pass the ball, and it's right. It is very fun to watch, but
Yep.
I prefer the
The
you know
simplicity a little bit.
the simplicities and the more
Right.
defined archetypes. And my last thought here is that's why I prefer. I believe college coaches are, I wouldn't say technically superior, but I think it's way harder to be a college coach, and I give them a lot more respect for the
Sure.
successful ones, and even
Yeah.
I give a lot of the ones who didn't do as well. I give them that grace, because it's so much harder than coaching the NBA. Like you said, it's like putting together a random jigsaw puzzle where you're missing half of the pieces, and it's up to you
Right.
to
Right.
be able to
And that's
figure that out.
reality of the transfer portal too. I think this past year is sometimes the
Yeah, and
puzzle
that
pieces
just
aren't your first pick. So
exactly,
that's
and
another
it
thing.
just makes it that much harder. So, a lot of respect for the college coaches doing it out there. All right, last segment, we're gonna be talking farewell, Coach Grant. Our final thoughts. I'm gonna step out here and say, again, like we talked about with the leading players, I interacted with Coach Grant a lot through press conferences, media interviews, whatnot. Regardless of what you want to say happened on the floor and Conti form. He was a great guy. Very polite person to be around. Very respectful to the media, which is not always the case with
Yep.
coaches and players in college and professional sports. So a very good person, great guy to be around. I, maybe I have some bias and maybe he softened me up, I guess, but I I don't know if I can blame him for what happened. I really you guys can go read my article on Substack or on Instagram. I believe it was called "What to Do with Earl Grant." It's basically me breaking down how he wasn't given proper support to run a Power 5 basketball program in 2026. BC didn't want to change with the changing landscape that is college athletics, and I think it really fell on him, and I think he was that scapegoat. Obviously, some of that there is some things that were his fault, late game situations that he had a lot of control over that he quite frankly screwed up pretty badly. But I mean, I'll let you talk here, but I don't think he deserves all the credit. He deserves some, right? No doubt, but I don't think he deserves all the credit that a lot of people online, give him.
Yeah, I think I want to start off by saying I agree with you on the it's more than just him in terms of like the blame aspect of BC basketball not being successful. It's a whole program thing, right? Like it's the players, it's the coaching staff, it's the administration, it's the managers like me, like it's everybody, right? The program's not doing well. It's you can't just blame one person for it. To start off, I think I want to tell a story of Coach that I think does speak to his character a little bit because it's like a bias, but it's kind of how I started getting into basketball in the first place. Like if this doesn't happen, I don't know where I'm at in life. So Coach Grant, my freshman year, I wasn't involved working with the team yet, but I was in the sports analytics club, and I knew that I loved basketball. And, I'd been to all the games and stuff like that. And I'd recently done a project where I like was looking at college basketball runs, like what happens when a team goes on a 7-0 run or whatever. And Coach Grant was they put on the BC men's basketball Instagram that they were having like coffee chats in Hillside with Coach Grant. And it was at like 8 a.m. on a Thursday or a Friday. And so myself being a freshman was like, I have to talk to Coach Grant. And so I woke up probably around 6 a.m., was the first person in Hillside as soon as it opened. And there was a line of students out of the door ready to talk to Coach Grant. He's only there for an hour. I probably talked to him for like 20 minutes. he gave me so much of his time to just talk about sports analytics. We talked about he had just recruited my teammate Nick Petroni at the time. He had recently committed, so that was a really exciting thing to talk about too. And so, like, I just remember him really like that was a great conversation. It gave me excitement. It made me want to work in basketball. And here we are, a couple of years later, as I'm thinking about my senior year and doing a bunch of different stuff at BC. Like he was open to talking to some freshman who probably had no idea what he's talking about realistically. Like I was just talking about some random analytics project. He's like, okay, like I'll hear him out. So, but that belief in like being a genuine guy and caring for others, that's what being a BC person is all about. And I think Coach Grant definitely was that. To speak a little bit more about the basketball side of things, Coach Grant, and I think you're seeing this clearly by how the players are responding right now, totally a player's coach, totally a guy that helps you not only as a player but as like a person. You get like believing in things that matter in life. Like why is this way of thinking important? Why is this team camaraderie important in life? I think that aspect of coaching goes under the radar somewhat, and I think that's where he really excelled. And I think that just shows how highly the guys speak of him that was definitely the case. In terms of the X's and O's of basketball, I think you're right in the sense that like there were situations this year that BC didn't do all that well in, particular in late game situations. Myself as a manager, I was seeing that pretty upfront and close. Like I wanted the guys to close it out, and it's hard, again. And when you have a situation like that, it's not just one player, or it's not just one player, it's not just one coach. Like it's a system, right? Like you need the players to buckle down and be disciplined and not commit fouls and not turn the ball over. You can argue that that's maybe part of the coaching design, maybe that's part of the system, but it's also on the player front too. And It's really a whole system of like you got to get the guys to be in the right place. You have to make the jigsaw puzzles fit. One thing I would like to add to this conversation is, yeah, you talked about the administration, but I think the other thing that goes a little bit under the radar is the transfer portal my sophomore year, after the Quinton Post year. That's something that I don't think enough people are talking about. I'll explain why. Quinton Post graduates, gets drafted to the Warriors, and after that, BC was a little bit surprised by this new and upcoming transfer portal thing. And I think everyone was a little bit too at the time, but BC did not have the resources, definitely my sophomore year at all. And you saw Jaden Zachary leave, and you saw Claudio Harris leave, and you saw Mason Madsen go to Utah to play with his brother, which again is fair. You saw Prince Alik Bay lead. You saw
Dion Brown.
Dion Brown was the year after that.
Or was the year after, yeah.
The top 7-point scorers were all gone. And part of that was the guys that left were a little bit later in the process. I specifically remember Devin McLaughlin leaving very late in the transfer portal process. And when that happened last year, part of it is like, okay, wait, we like are missing a roster now. We have to get guys on our team. And so they tried to make it work with what was left of the portal, and you had the guys last year. And so last year was a bit of, I wouldn't call it a mess, but like you weren't prepared for the huge shift in roster turnover, right? And so for that, I think it's fair to say like that's nobody's particular fault. Like that was just everyone being a little bit behind schedule. This year, I think you could maybe toss the blame around a little bit more and say, okay, they should have been a little bit more prepared to make the pieces work more effectively. Whether that was advocating for more money, I don't know. I think there's aspects of each part of the puzzle that could have been a little bit stronger. I think the coaches could have done a little bit better in certain situations. I think the managers could have done it better in certain managements. I think the players could have done better in certain situations. So it's hard to blame just Coach Grant. But I do think that everyone has to be a little bit responsible. I think the team should have been a little bit more prepared this year after not making the ACC tournament. And so I think part of that was what led to the decision this year of making the coaching changes. Fans, and the other thing too is this year as a manager, the thing that really hurts me as a student and someone who cares about basketball very deeply is I know at BC we have students that do care a lot about basketball. They talk to me about it all the time. I play pickup basketball with them in the gym. You just talk to your classmates about it. These are students that care about basketball and yet aren't going to the home basketball games. They're not there on the Tuesday nights when we're playing Notre Dame or we're playing Florida State. There were some games that we had pretty good attendance, which was really nice to see. But this past year, there were not many of those. And I think as a program, like you want to be not only reaching the students that like basketball, you want to create an environment where even the student that just like maybe likes sports but isn't the biggest basketball fan, or even the student just needs something to do on a Saturday night and wants something fun, that should be the basketball games. The basketball games should be the thing to do. And so that is a whole program thing. That's putting a good product on the floor. That's athletics doing good promotion work as they do currently. You want people to be excited about going to BC sports. Again, BC in Massachusetts is the only Power 5 school. And so you want people to be excited about going to these games. And we got to create an environment where there's a good product on the floor. There's, you want the students that like basketball to definitely be there. You want it to be exciting enough for people that like sports come. And I think that's one other thing that we should be thinking about too.
Yeah, I mean, hey, build it and they will come, right? So I think Luke Murray's, he said it in his introductory interview, right? He's changing the culture. That hopefully is something we can expect to see as Conti Forum looking a little more filled. I mean, I talked about this in past episodes, but the pictures of the arena this year were pathetic, like of some of what you saw, and you were obviously there for a lot of those games.
Right.
I covered the LSU game for the Heights, and I really thought that was going to be packed. I mean, it's LSU, SEC, went to overtime, whatever. There was barely anybody there. And then as to the Earl Grant stuff, right, you do have to, blame does have to go on your players, especially your leaders at times.
Sure.
What comes to mind is Donald Hand. Let me pull it up right here, but like the Louisville game, he was 3 for 17 from the floor. Georgia Tech, 2 for 13. LSU, 2 for 13. Pittsburgh, 3 for 10. Wake Forest, 2 for 8. At a certain point, right? If you're Earl Grant, you can't just yank him off the floor. He's supposed to be your guy, and he's proven that he can be your guy. But
Yeah,
sometimes the baskets don't fall your way, and it does fall on the shoulders of Earl Grant. Last thing I will say is we've covered it too, saying some things about what Fred Payne and what Donald Hand said, but you said it as well. Earl Grant was a mentor to these
yeah.
guys. He was a great coach as a person
Even to
wise.
me as a manager.
Yeah, he was a leader. He respected a lot of people, and I think he had a lot of respect that he earned from the media, from his players, from his, everyone, you guys, faculty and whatnot. So we wish you farewell, Coach Grant, and your next endeavors. But hey, it's time for Luke Murray, right? You should be excited. Everybody should be excited.
Absolutely.
BC basketball hasn't been really buzzing like this since, I guess
there's
the
a real
Quinn
excitement
Post year. And there is. Actually, okay, last thing I wanted to say is you mentioned it. I just said it. It's a weird BC basketball like little niche thing. Everyone, it's like before Christ and after Christ. It's like before Quinn Post, after Quinn Post. It's like always what is mentioned, and when you talk about
right, I think that's gonna change
basketball.
Yeah.
I really hope so. I really hope
right.
we can leave this after.
Well,
Quinn
what's funny
Post
about that is you see
thing.
the comment section. It's like, oh, we had this coach back in the day, and it's like the the unks in the comment section that are talking about that.
Whatever.
Yeah, Al Skinner, right? And you're like, I wonder if that's gonna be us. Probably is.
You guys don't remember the Luke Murray Elite Eight running his first year of BC basketball, whatever. Alrighty. Well, hey, Jonah, thank you so much for coming on. This was, I think, one of my favorite episodes so far. Great breakdown.
I'm glad to hear that.
Speculation. We love talking this new era of BC hoops again. Guys, get excited. Love to see people at Conti Forum come September, October, whenever that first game is. Remember, Spotify, YouTube, Substack, Apple Podcast. I really suggest you watch this on Substack or YouTube, though. Get access to the visuals Jonah provided, the slideshow we made talking about the transfer stuff. It'll really help you. Give us a follow on Instagram. Again, Jonah, thank you so much for coming out. This is episode 7 of the Green Line Gazette. New BC basketball era coming soon. Until next time, thank you for listening.